Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Erik from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I really appreciate you having me on and making the time and doing this for college soccer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time as well. I know your schedule's busy. Hopefully, less busy as we roll into the May timeframe.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the recruiting side of things. I think most people, are always, all the kids are hoping to go D1 whenever they're looking at schools. So, um, more specifically for you as Division I institution, when are you really looking at
Yeah.
players? When do you start looking at them in terms of what you're in high school and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we're a little bit different probably than some others. We are definitely in the mid to low major category. And so we definitely do some recruiting late. I would say, where we are right now, we wrapped up our 2022 class. We're, hard at work on our 2023 class. We've definitely identified some 2024s that when June 15th hits, we're going to hit send on some emails and make some calls and reach out to some people. And then, really we're going to focus on trying to get our 2023 class done by, about signing day, early November, and then really roll into 2024. Obviously COVID has thrown everything for a loop. So there's going to be some kids that maybe have a year left that decide to stay and that we want to stay. And there may be some kids that don't. The transfer portal has changed everything. I mean, almost every team has somebody leaving that's unexpected at some point. And so there's definitely still work to do in November, December, January, trying to put a bow on the recruiting side of things for the next class. But we really start the recruiting process as early as sophomore year in terms of identifying players. I would say that's really the spring of their sophomore year. We start spending time on that because most of the showcases that roll around in November through February, let's say, we're spending the most of our time working on the U19s and the U17s. Kind of those are the games we're sitting down to, which are going to be mostly juniors and seniors. It's really in spring where we sit down and we first kind of identify some sophomores. Hey, who's a good camp invite? Who's somebody that we want to get familiar with? And then obviously if there's somebody exceptional that we think fits our school and what we're looking for, those are kids that, hey, we write, hey, June 15th, they're on our short list of kids we want to reach out to, gauge their interest. I come from the Division II background. We kind of wait sometimes for the major schools, the bigger schools to kind of make their picks and try not to waste too much time on kids that we think may be way above our level. And sometimes waiting till their, junior year is the best way to do that for us because it kind of says, oh, who's here on the table? Because at that point, they're probably interested in anybody if they're still, kind of floating around in that time frame.
Yeah, makes sense. What are some of the can't miss tournaments that you make sure you're at every year? You mentioned sitting down watching games. Where is it that you guys like to go and look at players?
Yeah, so last year we had 13 different states represented on our team and 3 different countries. We do try to recruit mostly domestically in Canada. So most of the showcases I go to are really from coast to coast. This past year, I really did the ECNL and GA circuit. We're going to hit 2 or 3 of those major showcases. The second season ends. There's a showcase there was this year in California, ECNL. We hit the one in Nashville for ECNL because it was right here. We also went to Florida for ECNL. We went to GA out in California. We recruit a lot of players from out west. So we definitely find going west generally has a higher yield for us than maybe going east, just because those kids may be a little bit more open-minded to come into Arkansas, and that's something that we look at. I would also say, we're not a school that can just rely on going and watching the top ECNL and GA teams or whatever that looks like. So we do hit the ECRL events, we do hit DPL events, and then we hit all the regional showcases. We recruit heavily out of Texas, so we were just there at Dallas Cup. We will go down there again for Texas Shootouts the first week of June. We did not go to Players Showcase in Las Vegas this year, though I have been there, and that's a good place, as well as, Surf Cup, things like that. So we do hit, try to hit the major tournaments in region, hit a couple of ECNL, GA, DPL, ECRL level events, and then, a couple other big showcases where we can, we're limited with our budget, where we can kind of get the biggest bang for our buck and identify a top slate of players. But we're always looking for new things that work. And kind of where we can find the biggest collection of talents and kids that might fit what we're looking for. And we also hit the camp circuit quite a bit, and we can pull kids that way as well.
Well, you kind of lead me to my next question was camps. So how do camps fit in, whether they're your own camps or other schools' camps or anything else?
I think camps are huge. I've been in college soccer for 10 years, been a head coach the last 7. And I think camps are huge because, whether it's your camp or somebody else's camp, chances are you're going to get to engage with them one-on-one and build a relationship. They're going to get to see a piece of your coaching style, and see, what you're about and what energy you bring and what are kind of your non-negotiables. You're going to get to see their training habits. You're going to get a chance to kind of see, hey, how are they not in a game setting all the time? How are they technically? How are they dozing off or looking into space when you're talking to them? Or are they engaging with you? I mean, those are things we look for. So I love that. And then, of course, your own camps are great because you get to have players on your campus. They get to see the facilities. They get to see if you're a fit. You get to see if they're a fit as a player coach, but also they get to see if the university is a fit for them, which is really important for us. So camps are a huge part of us. We try to host 2 ID camps, maybe 3 a year, just one-day events. Try to keep them at about 30 people, so I know everybody's name, so I can, properly evaluate. So when somebody writes me an email, they can say, "Hey, coach, what did you think?" And I don't have to struggle to remember who it is. And I think that's just our philosophy. We'd rather have more small camps than one big camp. But then in the summer, I'll work some of the big national camps that are organized by that may have 30 to 50 college coaches. I'll work some of the bigger colleges camps, and then I'll also work some of the clubs that throw camps as well. So I definitely get around, and it's a way not only for us to see players, but it's a good way to keep those relationships with other colleagues, but also club coaches, and really get to meet players and build that rapport, because it's so important that you build that relationship with a player before they step on campus, and make sure that they're bought into what your vision is for the program and bought into the school as well.
Love that. So, whether it's at one of these tournaments or at a camp, kind of what's your specific hierarchy of things that check the boxes for you as a coach of players that you want to bring into the program?
That's a great question. We get asked that a lot. What are you looking for in a player? And I think it's multifaceted. I try, when I took over this program, they had not made the conference tournament the year before. I was the 5th head coach in 5 years. So we were 9th in the conference, I think, roughly, right? 9th or 10th. And our goal, my first spring here, we were picked dead last in the conference, finished 7th. So my goal is immediately when I recruit a player is, how does this player help me move up the table in the conference? I mean, that's the first thing I look at. What is it about them that makes them a potential recruit that's going to not be somebody that I've already have that's going to help us keep the status quo? It's going to drive us forward. Now, that could be insane athleticism. It could be crazy speed. It could be they're a great finisher. It could be they're great at set pieces. I've signed a kid this year because she's a fantastic leader, and I know she's going to grow into a captain on our team. Is she a good soccer player? 100%. But if you say about this player, what's their defining quality? Why are they going to help us? I'm not going to say, oh, it's because they're the best soccer player. It's because they're an outstanding leader that is a great culture fit. So the first thing I do when I sit down is what is this person's it factor? After that, obviously, we're in the SWAC conference. It's very athletic. It's fairly direct at times. You have to have athleticism. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be able to pass the beep test or get this level or make this time in the mile or run a 40 in this time or whatever. But it is about having athleticism to compete at this level. Not only in our conference, but we play a Division I schedule against some very, very good national tournament teams every year. And so in our non-conference portion, so we want to compete well. We want to get good results from those games and show and play with pride, and have chances to win ultimately. And so, athleticism is a huge part of what I recruit. More so, I probably, when I was a division, I'm kind of in a unique position. I've been a head coach at all 3 levels of NCAA soccer, and Division III level, I probably looked a lot more at skill and first touch and technicality than I do now. That's still important to me, and I would say that's my next step is hey, what is first touch? We do try to keep the ball at least a little bit, right? So are you going to kill a passing pattern? Or do you have good first touch? Do you have purposeful first touch? Are you receiving on the right foot? Are you passing to the correct foot? When you strike a ball, how's your technique? Then soccer IQ is the next part. And then the last thing is, as you get to know them, do they check the box in terms of a fit? Are they a kid that you're worried about in 6 months finding something on their social media that's a red flag? Are you worried that, they're a bad teammates or anything like that? So those are things. Sorry, I don't know if that
It's
messed
all right.
up or
You're
not.
good.
Yeah, those are things I look for. So I would say first, like, what is the defining characteristic about them? Are they a great ball winner? Are they a great scorer? Are they fast? Are they athletic? What is it about them that helps us and helps me believe that they're going to take us up the table in the conference? Then second, it comes back to, I think at our level, athleticism matters. I think thirdly, it would come down to, technique, and then a soccer IQ, and then obviously off the field, making sure they're a good student, making sure they fit our culture. I think those all are important. I don't think you can have somebody who doesn't check at least most of those boxes. However, that's probably how I would rank them. Although again, like the off the field fit, like if they're going to be problematic, like they're probably not going to make it anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. So how does being an HBCU, does that change your recruiting philosophies or what you guys do, or who you look after? I mean, some folks out there probably aren't familiar with HBCUs and that whole thing. So, looking at your roster, it looks like any other roster that you
Yeah.
kick around. But I want to make sure folks understand exactly what that means.
Yeah, so we are historically Black college and university. We are a land grant institution in the state of Arkansas. The reason we existed was, African American students could not attend the University of Arkansas when it opened, and that's the reason we opened. And so we carry that proud tradition with us. I do think it shapes and molds who we are as an institution and who we are as a team. Though to your point, we're as diverse as any team across the nation. You look at us, we're diverse socioeconomically. We're definitely diverse by race and ethnicity. We're diverse by every other facet, geographic, socioeconomic, that you can name, and we take pride in that. But I would say it does impact our recruiting for a couple of different ways. There are definitely kids that it's just not the right fit for them, and that's okay. We try to be really honest in the process and sharing who we are. We are a school that is 85-90% minority. So while our team looks like any other Division I, Division II, Division III, et cetera, soccer program that you're going to find in the country at the women's level, our school doesn't. And so we try to be really upfront about that and honest, and it's not a fit for everybody. So that does shape a little bit who we recruit. Doesn't mean that, every minority student wants to come to an HBCU either. So we try to just cast a big net. I think the biggest thing I've learned here from a recruiting standpoint is you just have to recruit a larger number of people, because we are limited resource wise. We are limited by our location. We are limited by our scholarship budget and some other things. So you have to cast, a really big net, similar to what I did at the Division III level in terms of shaping this roster. And so it does impact us. There's definitely, I would say, there's no kid that I wouldn't try to recruit, right? Based on level, ethnicity. If I thought they were a fit for us, I'm going to try to recruit them regardless of any of those other demographics. However, it just may not be the right fit for them. And to be fair, like, they may not check all of our boxes, but so it does shape who I recruit. There's a certain demographic that we don't get as much of in terms of maybe affluence or location. For example, Arkansas is not a huge soccer state. There's not, we only have one Arkansas player on our roster. We don't spend a lot of time recruiting Arkansas players because it's just not usually a good fit. So doesn't mean we won't try. Like, there's a player for 2023 we're trying really hard on right now. But that's kind of who we are as a program. There's nobody we're not going to try to recruit, but it does shape and impact how we recruit, how much we need to recruit to get down to our roster and our incoming class, and just how we shape those conversations. We're very upfront early on. Hey, here's the deal. Here's what it's like. We try to get them on campus and let them have that experience on a visit and see if it's the right fit for them. And we do get a lot of, most players come on campus and say, hey, this wasn't what we expected. Like, this is actually a really awesome, cool place. And I think it's a really special time to work at an HBCU. I'm really proud to be on staff at an HBCU. And I think there's a lot of good education that happens here and a lot of good things that happen here, but it's not for everybody. And we understand that in recruiting, and it does shape and mold how we go through that process for sure. But I wouldn't say it eliminates anybody up front, if that makes sense.
No, and I think that's just great information, right? I think I think there's a lot of people who just aren't familiar with what that means, or they have a misconception of what that means. So I always like to hear from the school itself. You did mention scholarships. What does the overall financial aid situation look like at your school, whether that's athletic money, academic scholarships,
Yeah.
just grants, whatever, just kind of give a broader picture for folks who are interested in what it might cost them when it comes to it.
Yeah, no. So we are, we're Division I program. Division I per NCAA, at least for now, are allocated a maximum of the equivalent of 14 scholarships. There's some talk that may change. We are not close to fully funded. We're about half funded, which is a struggle from an athletic standpoint, right? And it does change and shape how we recruit. And I kind of left this part out initially because I knew we'd get to the academics. We do have really strong academic scholarships, but it does shape how we recruit. Most of our academic scholarships that are impactful start somewhere between a 21 to 23 ACT and above, or the SAT equivalent. So really, like, I don't want to say we don't have a single kid on the roster that had a below 21 ACT. It's very difficult unless the player is a special player and going to get a lot of athletic money, for us to put together a really competitive package. If you don't kind of meet those academic benchmarks. That being said, we have players that are getting almost everything from academics because they're closer to a 30 ACT, or the equivalent. So that is something that comes up in recruiting. Now, I will say when I sit down at a tournament and I have a flyer in front of my hand, I don't immediately go to the ACT or SAT score. I'm still going through the list that I gave you earlier. But I do think it helps when all other things are equal. There's a player, hey, if they have a 23 ACT or 25 ACT, they're going to get a maybe 2/3 of their tuition covered based on academics, and I can maybe do the rest. And then they're on the equivalent of a full scholarship, and I'm only giving them half of what I'm giving to this other player that has a 19 ACT. So that comes into account. Our school, we're relatively affordable. Cost of attendance is around 28, but actual tuition fees, room and board, everything, that's not travel, personal expenses, it's right around 23. Most players can get in-state tuition, which takes it down to about 17. And like I said, if you're getting $5,000 to $12,000 academically, that can take you down between $5,000 and $12,000. We're able to hopefully make a good dent in that. Maybe you get some Pell Grants, or something like that as well, and all of a sudden you're looking at paying less than $10,000 a year, maybe even less than that, to go to a very good academic institution that can take you far beyond your 4 years here. If that's something you want to do, and obviously have a Division I college soccer playing experience. So that's kind of a general overview. We don't have anybody on an athletic full scholarship. We've got several players, though, that when all things are considered, are getting close to what would be considered a full scholarship between academics and athletics. So it's a huge piece for us in recruiting. We are not the most expensive school. We're probably also not on any top 50 best lists as far as programs, though we do have some really good programs. And like I touched on, we're in the University of Arkansas system. You can go on and do a lot of awesome, amazing things from our institution, and not be in massive student loan debt, or any student loan debt when you leave.
No, that's fantastic. Well, let's talk more about the school. Folks might, like I said, probably aren't very familiar with Pine Bluff, and they might know the Razorbacks,
Right.
but what, besides what I can go ahead and learn on the website and just clicking around, give me the inside scoop of what's awesome about Pine Bluff and what makes it attractive for a student to come to.
Yeah, so I think it's two or threefold. I think number one, we are an HBCU. So if diversity is important to you, if being maybe your parents went to historically Black college university, if that's important to you, we're certainly a great option in that box. It's a great time to be at an HBCU. Endowments are growing, our enrollment is up. There's some really cool things happening. So that's something special. Yeah, you can learn that, but it is a really cool part. Homecoming around here is like nobody's business, right? It is very, very cool. To be a part of something that is different, that's unique, I think is really cool. And the second thing is, we have Division I athletics, right? We are in the SWAC conference. We compete at a high level. You'll have the opportunity to play, on ESPN Plus and play some of the very best teams in the nation. We played 2 NCAA tournament teams this past year. We get a chance to travel and do some pretty amazing things. And I think as a school standpoint, right, we're in the University of Arkansas system. The only thing we're almost world renowned for is our in our agricultural department, we have unbelievable catfish researchers, like unbelievable. That's not a huge thing for a lot of soccer players, but we do have a tremendous agricultural program. Our agriculture science and education, our pre-vet programs are outstanding. We have a couple young ladies in that are graduating with that. We've got one working on a master's in that degree. So if that's something you want to do, we have outstanding programs there. We've got a great nursing department, fully accredited. All of our students, we have a really high NCLEX pass rate. All of them have jobs before they leave. We had a girl who graduated last year in nursing, and she had a job lined up back home in Texas 2 months before she graduated, and she's killing it and doing awesome. So we have that as well. We have everything except engineering, really. Engineering and marine biology, we don't have. Everything else. We are very competitive systems. And again, being in the University of Arkansas system, we're 45 minutes from Little Rock. Little Rock has a law school there that's associated with the University of Arkansas system. The University of Arkansas medical system, UAMS, is right in Little Rock. So they have a PT program, a med school program, a dental program. They have all that stuff in Little Rock. Being in the University of Arkansas system, a certain number of kids going into those programs are going to come from the system. So coming to our school, even though we're not the Razorbacks, we do have kind of, I don't want to say preferential admissions, but definitely a connection and a link there. It can be really helpful if you want to go on to more school, whether it's in the medical field or as a lawyer or whatever that looks like for you. So those are kind of, I guess, our big selling points that you might not know about, just from a quick Google search.
So if I'm a student and I'm in nursing or one of those great programs you talked about, as a soccer player, how do I manage the academics and the athletics and make sure I'm successful in both areas? What kind of support systems does the school offer to kind of help with that?
So this is one area I'm really fortunate in. Honestly, one of the main reasons I took this job and decided this was the place and the time to move to the Division I level are the resources we provide. We have 3 full-time staff members in athletics that work in our academic center. It's new within the last 7 to 10 years, brand new. It just got a $300,000 upgrade over the last 3 years in terms of equipment and computers. So there's an academic center just for student athletes in the same building as our weight room, our training room, right next to our football field. So that they handle study hall. They have free tutoring. They even have the ability to travel with us at times on the road if we're going to be gone for a long time, if we need some extra help. They're also helping you schedule to make sure you're not missing classes and missing games not missing games or practices for classes. And so that really helps me. I definitely have a very good relationship with the players, and we communicate a lot about grades. All my players know that I care very much about life beyond soccer. Hopefully, I've had players in the past that have gone on to have, pro or semi-pro careers here in Europe or wherever. But ultimately, my goal is to get players graduated. We have a perfect graduation success rate since I've been here. Our academic progress rate is up. So that's very important to me, but I'm lucky that it's not all on my shoulders. I've got 3 full-time staff members and some graduate assistants that work over in our academic center. They run study hall for us. They keep up with grades. They let me know if people are missing class or have, grades that are below our standard or their standard. And then we have one that meets specifically with our players a couple times a semester, make sure we're on track to graduate, and kind of helps with scheduling. So really lucky we've got those resources here. Those are, we are a mid to low major, but I would say that's one area that we have a truly Division I experience is in our academic department. And that really is a huge asset for our students because we have a really good team of student athletes that really get their business done in the classroom, that have some really big aspirations and ambitions post-college. And we want to make sure they have every tool they can to be successful while playing an extremely competitive Division I soccer schedule.
Oh, that's great. So, you mentioned having academic advisors when you travel and stuff. Like what does your typical travel look like? How often are kids missing classes for games? What's kind of your game cadence, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So our non-conference schedule, it ranges, about 5 weeks. We start August 18th this year. Our first conference game is like September 24th. So it's 4 or 5 weekends. We tend to stay pretty regional. I try for us to fly once a year. We flew actually just down to Houston this year. In 2023, we're planning to go up to North Dakota. So we try to have that experience once. Other than that, our travel is mostly regional. However, we do tend to play Thursday, Sunday in our non-conference. So it does result in if our Thursday and Sunday are both away, we might leave on a Wednesday. We might miss 3 days of school. Now I try to schedule so that the next weekend we're home. and they're in class even on Friday when we've got a game that afternoon or evening. But sometimes we do miss a fair amount of class. So that's why, we're fortunate. Our student to teacher ratio is like 18 to 1. You don't have a ton of big lecture hall classes, despite us being a public state university. We're relatively small in enrollment, around 3,000. So you're going to have relationships with your professors. They're going to know who you are. And so we just try to work things out that way. But again, if there's the one professor that's giving us a hard time, oh, you've missed so much class, that's where our academic department comes in, sends the email, keeps us all in the loop if there are problems. And so that's really nice. But our travel schedule out of conference, mostly regional, but we try to take one flighted trip a year. And then in conference, our conference is spread out. We're kind of in the center. We go 7 hours away down to a couple schools in Houston. There are 2 schools in Louisiana, 3 schools in Mississippi, and 2 more in Alabama. So we definitely are on the bus a lot during season. We're kind of spread out. We're a very true Division I conference in that regard. And so that's kind of where we spend most of our time. We do play Friday, Sunday in conference, so we miss less class, but we really try to tell our kids, hey, like Friday afternoon, bad time to have class, right? Even Thursday afternoon, if we can avoid having afternoon classes altogether, that's great, because we'll stay in school more. We'll miss less class, but definitely we miss a fair amount of class in the fall. It's just kind of the reality of our conference and our level of soccer, and that's why we have some great resources and tools to help us manage that, for sure. And I've been fortunate that most of the professors, even nursing wise, have been really understanding and accommodating with our busy travel schedule.
So you mentioned try to not have class Thursday, Friday afternoons, which makes sense. What does a typical week look like for one of your players? Is it practice in the afternoons, try to get classes in the mornings? What is there, lifting or other meetings involved? Kind of what's a rough idea of what somebody might go through in a typical week during the season?
That's a great question. Yeah, and we get that a lot from recruits as well. For us, I always tell when they go to make so they did this the first week of April, they made their schedule for the fall. I always say no class before 9 and no class really after, ideally 2, but absolute latest 3, end class by 3. So you could maybe take a 2 to 250 if you want, but no 3 to 350s in the fall, especially. They don't fight me on the no class before 9, which is good. Every once in a while, we are a smaller campus. We will have a random lab on a Tuesday afternoon from
Right.
4 to 5:30, and we just have to fight that. But that's the reason I say no class before 9. That allows us to train either 6 to 8, 7 to 8:30 in the morning, 6:30 to 8:30. It allows us to have that flexibility. So a normal week, we play Friday, Sunday, or Thursday, Sunday. Let's just say we're in conference, we're playing Friday, Sunday. Monday generally is our off day. Tuesday is generally our hard training day. We'll usually lift on a Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. We'll come on the field Tuesday afternoon, 3:30 to 5:30-ish. Wednesday we'll come back and have a, normal training session in the afternoon. Thursday morning, probably up early again, 7 a.m. lift or so, very light, prehab, rehab, flexibility, strength training, very light during season. We're usually in there twice a week during season, 3 or 4 times in the springtime. And then afternoon practice Thursday, a little bit lighter, probably a team meeting ahead of our match day on Friday. Saturday, light recovery day. Maybe if we're on the road, we're traveling, on that Saturday. And then Sunday, we run it back for our last game of the weekend. And then we get home if we're on the road late on Sunday night. If not, we're home, and then Monday is usually our day off. And I really, unless they're going to get treatment or training room, like our day off is a day off. It's a lot of times, it's a mental day off for me as well. Yes, I'm working on the scouting report for the next week, but we really try to even tell the kids, like, don't come around the facility, like, just take the day, you need it. So that's kind of our philosophy on an in-season week, if that makes sense. Usually afternoon training. I'm not a huge early morning person, so a couple times a week is 7 a.m. lift, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about the games and the team and the practice side of things. So, well, let's start first off. What would you say is your target roster size? Does the school mandate you have a specific number? Is there any sort of JV team? Like, what does your roster just overall look like?
Yeah, so we are, we've been at 20 to 24 since I've been here. So I got the job the week the pandemic hit, the week the world shut down, kind of a ideal time to start a job, right? I was in a dead period for the first 14 months, so that was a challenge. This will be the first class I've recruited here that I got to all see and meet in person, and they got to visit, and they were allowed to do so. So it's been a challenge from that regard. But ideally, 24 to 26 is where I want to be, maybe 27. I have worked at institutions that require 30 plus before, and that's, to me, there's some real positives there. But to me, it's not a setup to be successful long term always. So we try to stay at 24 to 26. The disadvantage is if you have some injuries, you have too many goalkeepers in that group, you can't do 11v11 all season. That can be problematic. So I get, coaches that want to keep bigger rosters. The positives, everybody travels. It stays insanely competitive because I'm not playing 24 kids, but I might play 18.
Yeah.
And there's not, I will say it stays competitive, but there's not a ton of unhappy people. There's nobody on my roster I have to look at in end of season meetings and say, unless they're not performing or I missed in recruiting, I have to sit down and say, hey, you're not going to ever factor in here. It was pretty hard when I worked at a Division II and Division III school with 30 plus to look at the kid who I knew in my head was 27 to 30 and say, wow, you're going to be a big part of going forward. It was disingenuous, I felt. And so I'm really lucky my institution doesn't mandate anything. I think 24, 26, I'd like to be that 24, 26, 27 range, keeps it competitive, keeps people a part of things. And also, it still allows me to build the depth that I need, with the liberal substitution rules that the NCAA asks for. It allows me to still be able to be 20 deep if we're healthy and that sort of thing, but also be able to look in every kid and say, like, you're a part of what we're building here. You're important, depending on what your role is, but you still have a role to play. And versus the kid that's maybe further down the roster that maybe they have a big role, but it's just not manifesting itself on the field because everybody wants to play. For
Right.
sure.
Well, what about?
I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What about staff? What does your staff look like? What are the roles do they play?
Yeah, so I'm probably the rarest form in Division One right now. The first 2 years I have not had an assistant, so it's just been me. Now I say that I have a staff in terms of I got a full-time athletic trainer that travels with us. We have 3 full-time people in the academic center. We've got 3 strength and conditioning people on campus, and 1 that often, if they don't travel with us, they'll be on the sideline for home games. That works solely with our team. So those things we have a senior women's administrator that's able to work with the players. Happy that we're going to have a young female on staff this coming year that will really help take us forward. And so that's kind of the goal, hopefully, is to get somebody that will start on July 1st and kind of fill that. We'll have a week or a month to prepare for the season starting, about August 3rd. So kind of going through that process right now, finding the right person that can come in and start with me and help build us forward. So I'm thankful that the university has decided that that's something that's important to us. And, because certainly not having help has been a challenge. It's been a great way to build a relationship with the players and earn their trust. But, definitely I've always had a staff and at the Division II and III level, and it's definitely important and impactful for the players. So that would be, a red flag that we've overcome in the past that we don't have to anymore, which is nice. But I also think it says a lot about the players and the university's trust in myself. Not to be arrogant, but I think I take it very humbly that I've been charged with basically running this program by myself. But I'll be very glad for the help and assistance moving forward, because I think it'll help make our program a lot better.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your style of coaching. How would you
Sure.
describe it? How would you describe kind of the team style of play and the culture of the team in general?
Yeah. So I would always, when recruits ask me this all the time, and I'm a pretty self-aware person. I try to be honest and straightforward. But what I will say is it's always good, and this would be a great advice for anybody, ask the players, hey, what is Coach Erik really like? What is Coach so-and-so really like? Because they're going to tell you. I can give you the best version of myself and know that some days I probably don't hit it. Hopefully I'm conveying I'm a pretty passionate person. I'm pretty energetic. It's not hard to get me out of bed every day. I'm an extroverted person. I literally feel the energy I get when I step onto the field with the team. And we try to have a lot of fun. My coaching style is like, it's okay to laugh. When it's time to work hard, we work hard, and everybody works hard. But like, laughter is okay. Like, we want to celebrate what's going on in each person's day during the day. And grieve when they have to grieve, but really be excited for players and celebrate things that go on in our program. But really, we try to have fun when we train as well. Like soccer should add to the athletic experience, or the student athlete experience should add to the collegiate experience. So I try to have that in mind in everything that we do. We try to compete at everything that we do. We try to make it all as soccer related as we can. There's very, I'm not a let's get our shoes on and run 3 miles. Like that's not me. We try to get fit through playing. And we try to just be extremely competitive, and we have a winner and a loser with everything that we do. And with that being said, like I'm a big believer in the Socratic Method and asking questions to get to answers. And that's really how I try to coach, as an extension of, I've taught in the classroom at the college level before. And I really want players to, solve problems together or individually, but ideally collectively. And so I try to ask a lot of questions to get to answers. And that's when we're preparing for another team, or when we're just trying to figure out the best solution to how we want to play. I think it depends. I think everybody wants to keep the ball. I think our level and some of the talent we have up top probably makes us less likely to be a play out of the back kind of team, especially when we play some of the best teams in the non-conference. We would just get pressed to death if we did that. So we do play long a lot of times on goal kicks and punts, and try to win the ball in the midfield with some big ball winning midfielders. And then we try to get the ball wide and attack. I really allow our forwards and our outside backs and our midfielders to be super creative in the attacking third. There's not a certain way we want to do things. We just want to ask a lot of questions from the other team's defense, test the keeper a bunch, and hopefully keep the ball on that half of the field as much as possible. So that's a big, key in what we're trying to do. And then we just, we want to pride ourselves in how hard we work. That should be the first line in any scouting report that's about UAPB soccer is, regardless of talent, regardless of who's healthy, who's injured, whatever the situation is, that we're the hardest working team. And that's the biggest thing, is that we have good energy. We play hard for one another. That should be kind of the underlying value. Team culture is great. I was really worried. Like I said, 5th coach in 5 years. I've made it longer than all my predecessors. I think going back like almost 10 years now, seriously. So it's been a process building culture, but I was really worried that it was a bunch of crap kids, and it wasn't. They're really good kids that now the roster they've graduated and stuff, and there's not a ton of them left that were here before I got here, but there's still a few, and they're all really good players that bought in, that took a chance on me during a pandemic, stayed. And that's why we celebrate when we have 3 players graduate the other day, and we really celebrate those moments, because they've invested a lot to stay here. It's not the easiest place to be. It's not always glamorous what some of these players have gone through. I mean, we had a player that just graduated that had a different coach her first 3 years here. And she stayed and through the process. But the culture is really good. We're in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, not only to get a degree, but to play soccer. I think that helps. There's not a ton of distraction here. There are things to do. There is fun to get into. But there's not a lot of, you're here in Pine Bluff to play soccer, not because of really anything else. And I think that helps the cohesiveness of our team and our desire to win and our competitiveness. And so that's, for that reason, I think the culture of our team is pretty good. Whenever you have a collection of 20 to 30 college age women, not everybody's going to always be best friends. Right. But yeah. I do think everybody loves each other, respects each other, and trusts each other. And we work really hard on that in the preseason and try to recruit kids. They're going to fit into that mold and believe in my vision for the program. But I really want to give the players as much ownership in the program as possible. And I think we're fairly successful at that. I can want it all I want, but it's got to be driven by the players.
I mean, I can relate. I had 3 coaches in my 4 years as a college player, and there were only 3 of us that made it all 4 years through that cycle. So it is tough, but
sure.
But it's good that they got you there on the backside. Well, hey, we've covered a lot of ground here. I just want to leave you with one last question. It's kind of my catch-all here. What didn't we cover? Yeah. What else do you want to tell us? Whether it's about the school, the team, the program, the city, anything you want to reiterate, anything you want to tell recruits at all, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would just be my little sales pitch and my elevator pitch, and that would just be, look, like, if you want to go to an HBCU, if you're okay with a diverse experience that's affordable, where if you have good grades and are a talented soccer player, you can get a Division I college soccer experience for little to no cost, not leave with big, massive debt, get a degree that's meaningful in a field that you care about. That will either lead to a very good job by the time you graduate or to more school in the field that you desire. I think we're a great place. It's not the easiest place though. Like if you don't want to compete every day, if you don't want to deal with not everything being perfect all the time, it's probably not the place for you. I think we often recruit through non-recruiting. We're very upfront and honest. And if you want everything to be fancy in this, like we travel great, we eat well, we have an awesome deal with Adidas, like everything is good, but it's not the most perfect place always. And so if you want that, then maybe you're not the right fit for this. But if you have a chip on your shoulder, maybe you're passed over by some other Division Is. If you're still looking for that Division I fit, if you care about diversity, you care about academics, you want to compete and prove every single day that you can be a Division I soccer player and help us win a championship, it's a great place to be. And I'm committed to the program and leaving it better than I found it, and ultimately winning a championship here at UAPB. And I'm just excited for where our program is going to go. We've taken some good baby steps forward, and just excited to see where we are in 3 to 5 years, because there are some special things happening here. We're working on a new $3 million soccer track facility that's supposed to open fall of 2023. So there is an investment in our university in women's soccer, in women's athletics. We've got a great partnership with Simmons Bank here in Little Rock that's given money just to women's sports in our athletic department. And so there is a very, as we're at the anniversary of Title IX, like there's a huge investment in women's sports and in women's soccer here. And that's something that you can come be a part of if you think that you have what it takes, and so that's my sales pitch, I guess, but also just some more honest truth about who we are as a program and the future and the things that get me excited and get me out of bed every day, ready to attack the day and make Golden Lion soccer better.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, we look forward to checking in on you in the fall and
Awesome.
see how that quest towards the conference championship's going. And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we'll just hopefully check in with you again soon.
Awesome, Matt. I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me. Appreciate what you're doing for college soccer and just exposing more and more schools to players that they may not have heard about. And I think it's awesome and needed to be done. So appreciate you filling that void for us. And thank you for the time.
I appreciate it, Coach.